This is our Robotics Competitions podcast, and I'm your host, Kirill Mitov. I'm joined today by Lucy. Lucy Owen is the head of First Lego League and IET, which stands for the Institution of Engineering and Technology in UK. Hi, Lucy.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. As we've discussed previously in our talks, our goal with the podcast is to share the stories, to share the experience of people that are deeply involved in the First Leg League competition and generally in science and technology, but mostly in the robotics competitions. And we've talked with you a couple of months ago, and I know a lot about the work that you are doing in the UK. And I just thought that it would be interesting for you and for our listeners to learn more about the way you do First Leg League in UK. So could you walk us through this? Like, how is your organization working? How do you organize the competition? And what's going on in the UK?
Sure. So the IET, we're the delivery partners for the UK and Ireland. We've been running it since about 2012, and it's grown quite significantly in the last few years in terms of the number of children that we're engaging and working with and how we're delivering the programme. So we run all three divisions of First Lego League, which is Discover for 4 to 6-year-olds, Explore for 6 to 9-year-olds, and Challenge for 9 to 16-year-olds. And I think the reason that the IET are so invested in running First Lego League in the UK is because our mission as an organisation is to make a difference and inspire the next generation of engineers and technicians. And as we all know, First Lego League is a really easy and exciting way of doing that because we're getting children right from 4 obviously engaging in the First Lego League programme through play and all of a sudden involving themselves in STEM education. So we run it on quite a big scale, spreading all over the UK and Ireland itself in various different ways. So we have teams that go to regional events that are run via a very big network of voluntary delivery partners for us. And the reason we use voluntary delivery partners is my team, we're like 7 people, and that's it across the whole of the country. So we have to rely very heavily on a very generous network of volunteers who go and deliver events for us, and they go and work with the children and their judges and their referees. We wouldn't have enough of us to go and do what we do otherwise. So they run events for us. But we do the class pack over in the UK as well, which is by far the most popular version of First Lego League. And we think it's obviously got a fantastic stance in the curriculum, and definitely in the UK, but definitely globally as well, where every child is engaging in First Lego League in that classroom. And it's not just the children that choose to go to an after school club, for example. And this is where you make that biggest impact in changing the perceptions on STEM and that excitement about being involved in STEM. So class pack's been huge for us. Sorry.
The class pack, you call this the class pack.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you are bringing robotics and First Lego League directly in the classrooms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ooh,
So it's done during teaching time, curriculum time, and it's the same concept. They do exactly the same program as they would as an after school club, except it's during teaching time and it's with up to 30 students that work together in smaller teams, doing the exact same content, working towards the same goal. But what they do as a class is at the end of the program, rather than going to a regional tournament or a festival, they will do an in-class version. So they sort of all compete together and get crowned. One of them is crowned the champion of their class. But what we're seeing a huge increase in now is they'll run class pack in the autumn term, which is September to December for us. And then the winning team from that class then go on to a regional tournament to represent the school at a regional event, and then nationals and then internationals and the whole cycle. So it's really just kind of expanding that exposure to First Lego League on a much bigger scale than just, your team of 10 that go on to the regionals. And we're definitely finding that teachers prefer class pack because it's in-house. They can, engage with the whole class. It's not an extra ask outside of school or going anywhere else. But it is, again, making that biggest change to the children that would never have considered doing a robotics club. They wouldn't go, oh, yeah, I want to go to a STEM after school club. It's just part of their curriculum. And it starts to really change them.
Because Okay, it's you can choose such a class, you can choose robotics, you can choose after school, but when it is in the class, and when did you start doing this?
So it's been around for about 4 years with Explore. So Explore was probably the first division that sort of introduced this version. And then when Discover was introduced, sort of 4.5, 3 years ago, say, Discover is only class based. So there's no regional event for Discover because they're much younger. Obviously, it's less accessible, I guess, to take a 4-year-old out to a huge regional event. So that's all done in class. And then, so that's obviously got huge traction because it's so great for the early years, developing through play and learning with others in the classroom. But Challenge has been a class pack for about 2 seasons, 3 seasons now. And similarly, we're finding the shift definitely in the UK market more towards the class pack versus the team. There's definitely still a place for the teams and for the regional events, but we're finding class pack is feeding those regional events as well because we're getting the in-class engagement, then moving on to the regional. So you just get more of a broader experience.
Oh, definitely, and you can engage a lot more students.
Mm.
And so you see this shift in the UK. Was it difficult to introduce this with the partnership with the schools, with the teachers? How did you approach it? It might be interesting for others that might be taking other forms of partnerships with their local schools, municipalities, states. How did you manage to get this going?
Um, we didn't really find it that challenging. I think just because the teachers could see the value of it, so they could see how beneficial it was to suddenly open up this opportunity to more than your single team of students. So the other thing I think that helped is that we mapped First Ever League to the UK curriculum. And in the UK, obviously, we're England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, so and the Republic of Ireland, so 5 nations, all of which have 5 different curriculums. But we've mapped all 5 curriculums against the 3 First Ego League divisions. And I think the beauty of doing that is that teachers can see, I don't know, I'm going to teach computer studies, and oh, look, First Ego League really easily fulfills my curriculum requirements. So I can just teach that rather than doing something different. So we made it really easy for them to see how simple it was to slot into their curriculum teaching. Um, and we have loads of resources that help them as well. There are class pack guides that help teach them. You've obviously got your team meeting guide and your enduring notebooks, but how do you transfer that into a classroom setting? So there's extra resources that exist to support on that as well. But it wasn't really difficult once we created the assets to support teachers to see the benefits of a classroom delivery. It's just kind of snowballed on its own, really. And our job now really is just supporting them by keeping up with the resources and the communication. And we create videos every season, which teaches them how to deliver it in their classroom. And we offer training sessions, all those kinds of things. But yeah, I think as long as the support network is there, it kind of does itself. It sort of sells itself, really.
Oh, yes. And if new teachers would like to join, how do they find the program? How do they understand more about the program? How do you make this program more popular?
We obviously have our website, which has lots of information on there. We don't do a huge amount of I guess active promotion. We've been very fortunate in the UK that we don't really need to do huge amounts of advertising. It's grown so significantly in the few years that we've been doing it through word of mouth, through other teachers recommending it to another teacher that they know, and so it's naturally grown quite easily. But we do obviously do advertising on social media and various sort of teaching areas. But our website is our hub of all the information, really. So people that's how they register to join, and that's where they access all of the resources to be able to run it as well.
So it's enough for a teacher to visit the website, get a sense of the of the task to organize and to use the first Lego League concepts in their classroom, this class pack, and they could just reach out to you and they could start introducing first Lego League.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Perfect.
the way that we sort of work in the UK, especially, I think because we engage with so many different schools and so many different teams and children, is we don't necessarily know all of the teachers. Like, we don't have that sort of relationship with them. Whereas a lot of the other country partners, I know that they've got, a great network where they know all of their teachers by first name, and, they work really closely with them. And it's a downside, I guess, of growing so big so quickly, is that we don't know all the teachers inside and out. So it's very much, I always call the way we run it is very self-sufficient. So a teacher will
Mm-hmm.
decide to do it. We give them everything they need and they just run with it. We're not really there as, the direct point of support, because we create everything that they can access themselves when they want to, rather than it being we're working really closely with them.
Mm-hmm. Do you think they're facing any challenges, issues? I'm asking in a more broader sense, like when they participate in the competition, both as teachers and then the teams and the students, do you see any challenges that they're facing, some difficulties that they're trying to resolve, some issues?
Yeah, I think that the main issues we find in the UK is the cost is
Mm-hmm.
always a barrier for teachers and schools to get involved with. So we offer a lot of funding. We're very fortunate in the UK to have external sponsorship and donations, which we can give to disadvantaged schools so that they get to experience it. So cost is always a bit of a barrier, especially with, the robots themselves. They cost quite a bit of money to buy. Obviously, they're used forever, but it requires the money up front, and that's often puts a lot of schools off, because they haven't got the resource. But the other thing that we're finding a lot of is teacher confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think this is necessarily restricted just to the UK. I think generally teachers do lack the confidence to do robotics if they haven't got that background already. And I know that the UK teacher training programs, especially in primary schools for the younger children, there's hardly any training for teachers as they become a teacher about how to deliver science, how to deliver robotics or coding and technology type focused subjects. That is all about English and maths primarily. So you will get teachers that can see how great it is and they say, oh yeah, I want to do first aid. This is going to be fantastic for my children. But they're like, I don't know where, like, what do I do? I don't know how to code a robot. So it's trying to always overcome those, the lack of confidence, I guess, that they have in
Mm-hmm.
themselves. And we always say, it doesn't matter if you can't code a robot. I can't code a robot. I say to the children, here's the robot, here's the resources. You tell me, what do you think you need to do? And it's that child-led learning that is so fundamental in First Lego League that for me makes it this incredible learning resource, because it's not about the teachers imparting knowledge on them. It's about supporting the child to find it out themselves, and encouraging that curiosity, um, to develop in their own way. And so, training supports, obviously, we offer training sessions, and we have a really great training provider that people can access. So there's lots of things that we're doing to try and help overcome them. But yeah, there's every school's slightly different, and every you'll have one school that has a fantastic teacher and they end up doing everything for the children. You're like, well, it's not really how it's meant to be. It's meant to be the kids, but they're really passionate and they love it, and that's great. So it's, yeah, there's different challenges, I think, with different schools that we work with.
So, and you are bringing an important point here. Teachers might want to join the competition, but they see robotics, they see programming, they
Yeah.
see engineering, and they're like, oof, that's difficult for me.
Hmm.
But it's actually not, because the goal here is not to teach the children, it's more like to facilitate and to support them,
Exactly.
which is like, it kind of looks like the granny approach. This reminds me of the granny approach, where the granny is like, that's really nice. And how do you do this? And it's really nice. Tell me more about this.
Hmm.
So asking the questions, trying to support them and to be supportive to the students. And it's student led, to your point. It's students are leading the way.
Yeah.
How do students find them? Was there any change in the last couple of years? I know that you've been doing this for quite some time already. Do you see some trends with the students?
I think the main thing that we've observed, mainly through the switch towards class pack, is that we've never heard of a school saying my children were not engaged in the sessions. So I think it's interesting. I had a chat with another organisation the other day actually, and they'd said with a completely different program that they found a whole class was more tricky because the children lost interest. So I said, well, we don't notice that with First Lego League. Like, in fact, it's the other way round because I think the great thing about First Lego League compared to potentially other robotics competitions or other whole school initiatives is that every child can succeed and every child can access the learning because it is child led. They need it at their own time, their own pace, their own level. So no child will ever feel that they haven't succeeded through doing First Lego League. They would have achieved something by the end. And I think that creates this huge amount of engagement in the classroom. So for me, that's the biggest thing is seeing kids 100% engaged because it's so enjoyable and it's so accessible. Just suddenly makes this, it's not a wasted resource. It's all something that they can achieve and do, which is the beauty of it. So we find that a lot with children with special educational needs or disabilities. That First Lego League has been a huge tool for a lot of those specialist schools because, the children couldn't potentially access normal, I say that with speech marks, normal education. But when you give them something that is tactile and they're using their hands and they're exploring in their own way, they come up with some amazing things that they wouldn't do if it, reading and writing, because that's not everybody's forte. So I think it's the fact that it's so accessible, regardless of where your starting point is. And you see children who have, would never have considered picking up a robot before, or like, oh, I'm not techie, I don't know how to do this. And then you see them at an event, and they can tell you about all this coding, and you think, my God, where how amazing have you come from this tiny shy little child that's never touched a robot, and all of a sudden you're presenting in front of adults that you don't know, which is really hard as even as an adult talking in front of strangers. And just the difference in their social and emotional skills is just phenomenal. So I think it's a life-changing experience, and it's not just robotics. And I think that's the tagline of First Lego League. It's more than just robotics. It's a life skills program. It really is. It has lasting impact on these kids that do it.
Oh, definitely. Lasting impact, great experience. You learn a lot, not just in the robotics. Have you been in the classroom where there are 30 students? Could you take us through the classroom and tell us more about what's happening in the classroom when a teacher is working with 30 students? What's going on there? How does this work?
Yeah, so it looks chaotic and it looks a bit mad, but it's wonderful learning happening. So if we take challenge, for example, which is obviously slightly more complicated than the other two divisions, with challenge, one of the biggest factors, I guess, in the UK especially is the length of time for a session. So most UK classes, you have an hour per lesson and then you move on to the next one. So a lot of challenge classrooms end up splitting teams into half. They almost have a project focused mini team and a robot focused mini team. And so you almost see these little clusters of children working on their focused areas. And that's what I love about it. You see this collaboration, and you have the really confident kid and the quiet kid, but all of a sudden they're on a level playing field and they're all working together and really sort of bringing their skills to their subgroup. So you see them, frantically working away in their little areas. And then what I love is at the end of a session, they come back together and they sort of teach the other subgroup what they've been doing. So the project guys will say, this is what we researched today, and this is what we're thinking we'll do with this, and vice versa with the robot. So, and I think when you're able to teach somebody else something, that's when you've really understood it. And you see this happen all the time in the classroom with First Lego League, is where they're teaching one another what they're learning at the same time and really embedding that knowledge as they go. So yeah, it's always slightly chaotic because you've got so much activity happening at the same time, all in different areas, and obviously everyone's really engaged and chatting, so it's noisy. And in the UK, I don't know about the rest of the world, but in the UK, teachers don't like noise, which is weird because to me, noise means children are learning and they're enjoying that learning. So a First Lego League classroom is a very different classroom from your average lesson because it's noisy and it's encouraged and it's like, come on, let's chat, let's have a talk about what we're doing. So yeah, it's a lively classroom, I think is the easiest way to describe it.
Oh, lively classroom, like class packs and a lively classroom. It's a good way to put it, and I think it's a good way for us to wrap up this talk. And it's been quite interesting, the class packs, and I think most people around the world will be really interested in learning more about them. You mentioned that you have some materials on the website, and the
Yeah,
website is like a central spot, so people could go there and could learn more about, get a sense of the resources that you are providing, and learn how to organize this, right?
absolutely. Yeah,
I
all on the
think
website.
I've also seen it in a couple of other countries that are also trying something like this, because that's the right way to do it. It's a good way to approach the teachers and the schools to do it in the not in the after class activities, but also to include it in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, anything else that we forgot to mention here? Anything else that you think it's important for other teachers to know and other organizers?
I just think that it's about flexibility more than anything that we've kind of embraced at the IET is this flexible approach, because the less prescriptive you are with what you offer schools and teams, the more you'll get engagement. And we have like it's quite a complicated options rather that we offer. But it's because people can pick and choose what they want to do with First Aid League, and I think that's where we've been quite successful is having that freedom for teachers to take the choice into their own hands about what they do and don't want to do. So I think flexibility is a really key part of getting maximum engagement with teachers for sure. And just like we've had like a pilot at the minute about rather than expanding, I guess, on the class pack, and we've taken it to a whole school initiative. So every single class in the school is doing First Lego League, and that's an enormous scale, which has its own challenges and complications, but it's just taking that beauty of First Lego League in the classroom and just really expanding it even further. So again, that flexibility to see how big it can potentially be. And I'm a firm believer of that First Lego League will change the world, and it will do it one class and one teacher and one child at a time. And it's going to be enormous. My goal is for it to take over the UK. If we can have it in every classroom, I'll be very happy. So
Oh, I wish you luck. This has been our Robotics Competitions podcast, and we talked with Lucy Owen, who is the head of First Lego League and IET in the UK. Bringing First Lego League in every classroom, and First Lego League is going to change the world. This is what we have as a as an end from Lucy. Thank you very much, Lucy, for joining us, and thanks for sharing this great experience that you have with the classroom packs and the way you manage the First Lego League in the UK.
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.